Okay, this topic is going to be potentially slightly triggering, so I just want to prepare you for this. This is part three of my series related to Kundalini energy. What is it? Is its function, sexual trauma, how the sexual misery programs that have been around the planet on the planet for millennia, how to get reclaim that energy, and then this one is about sexual trauma that occurs in young children and really young children, even babies, and why this particular trauma is probably trauma is trauma. And yet, it's really important for you to know if you're here and you have experienced sexual trauma, especially before the age of 7. I'm going to tell you, you have probably experienced a lifetime of struggle like no one other. And I'm going to share with you right now why that is and what you can continue to do about it so that you can restore your 12D template and get your life back. It's all about the sexual energy. And he's Ike Mama G here. I am a high priestess who empowers twin flames to alchemize sexual trauma into embodied power with my sacred sexuality reclamation method so that they can experience true intimacy, lasting fulfillment, and confidently step into purpose, pleasure, and their radiant feminine sovereignty. So, before I continue, again, I've got a great program coming up just around the corner, a 4-week immersive sacred sexuality awakening, where I do just that, help you to get it back. Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to do my best to just give you the information and yeah, and just do my best to smile through it because it is what it is. And yet, I think once you hear this today, it's going to, first of all, maybe help to shed some shame from your own experience, especially if you have struggled for not just years, but decades. You've probably, if you're here right now, you have been on this healing and transformation journey for decades. You've been in sacred preparation for years with your other self. You've seen others come into union. You see others making all kinds of money, others living, living their best life. You are partaking in the same tools, same manifestation tools, all the universal laws, and yet you still struggle. I'm about to explain to you why that is. Because yes, trauma is trauma, yet sexual trauma, especially before the age of 7, creates what could potentially be permanent, persistent cracks in your human template. Okay? I say potentially because nothing is ever permanent when healing happens and that 12D template is restored. I know I keep referring to it because that's essentially what that template is. It's about ascending and coming back into oneness and wholeness. I mean, not coming back into it. You already are. We already are. It's just remembering it and embodying it. Okay, so now, first of all, very young children, because they have not likely yet been exposed. For example, they haven't yet been exposed to the shame coding of religion and cultural indoctrination. They haven't, typically been exposed to pornography, although it is possible. So when they're not haven't been exposed to those type of sexual misery programs and coding, then they haven't had any experience, any depletion of their Kundalini energy or their life force energy. So it's probably in its most potent, purest, raw form. And if you're if you're a lower entity trying to harvest energy so that you can stay alive, and you see this in young children, what do you think you're going to do? You're going to go right for the young children. And that's why child abuse and sexual trauma and child sex trafficking, child sex slavery has become so prevalent. It's real, it exists. The Epstein files are real. What's being unleashed, what's being shared is real. I'm going to tell you right now, this is how it functions on it. This is a base 10 system We function, divinity is a base 12 system. A base 10 system is a system that shares, in other words, it's a system that cannot sustain itself. It runs out of energy. It consumes energy in order to create. And eventually that means it's just going to consume it all and the energy runs out. Divinity is free energy. Base 12 is free energy, source energy. Never runs out because it's always tapping into source. So, I know I got off a little bit. I think I needed to mention that. So if you're looking to fuel yourself or to feed yourself, you harvest young children. I got off track because I was going to say something else, but it's okay. So yeah, young children tend to have a very strong Kundalini charge. So I did mention in another video that let's look at child sacrifice. By the way, trigger warning, child sacrifice still exists. Still exists. Yeah, I know that firsthand. Think of in the Bible, the Canaanites, the Carthaginians. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I think you know what I mean. The Phoenicians, the Sumerians, ancient Israelite civilization, well known, well documented in even in the Christian Bible that there was in fact child sacrifice. There was one, I'm trying to think which civilization it was. I want to say it's the Carthaginians, where they would sacrifice the firstborn. It was a boy, when they were like in a crisis or something, to the god Baal. Okay. And so child sacrifice is very well documented. Very well documented. Here today in modern times, because the collective consciousness would not support that at this time, it is much more covert. And yet it still exists. The harvesting is still happening. And part of this harvesting happens by programming. I would say, especially you could be programmed to molest somebody else. If you are in a lower state of consciousness, if you are depressed, if you've been traumatized yourself, if you've served in the military, there's programming that can happen there. You can actually be programmed to become a pedophile. I don't think there are any natural pedophiles. Okay, at least not who have the spark of divinity within them. With that being said, grooming is a thing. We've got all right, I'm kind of bouncing around here. Okay, so let me just start with this. What happens when I'm going to repeat this, when you traumatize sexually, especially a child before the age of 7, before they're fully anchored into this earth plane, you create, as I've said already, and I think it's worth repeating, a persistent, permanent fracture in their human template, the Catharic template, essentially. And what that means is that there's a gateway that's always open, that is always allowing fallen angelic entities to enter into that child's biofield, who then becomes an adult child. And the result of this, if you've got entities that are constantly feeding off your biofield, off your energy, you are going to become more and more depleted over time. You are going to become more and more depressed. You're going to experience a multitude of physical illnesses and mental disturbances. You might even be haunted like I was. You may experience poltergeist activity. I was haunted through most of my life. And it wasn't until I understood the power of sacred sexuality and sexual energy that I started to finally remove those demons and take my life back and start to be able to sleep at night. When I say poltergeist, when I say haunted, most of my life, and I never knew why. Why was this happening to me? That's why. It's because your template was fractured. The great news is the more healing you do, the more you understand about the power of sexual energy. The knowledge is power. If you can first remove them and then clear and protect, and then learn how to properly cultivate sexual energy, you're golden. All that stops. You start to increase in your vitality. You feel happier. You start to manifest abundance, everything. You start to enjoy life like you've never had before. You start to sleep better. You start to surrender. You start to experience more peace. That's how it's been for me. I'm not saying it still hasn't been a journey where I'm still going in there, yet it's just different because I'm in charge now. I'm the one that's doing the healing, and I'm able to progress and move forward. So I can't emphasize enough how important that is. So this could be your answer right now. This could be your opportunity for your breakthrough transformation like it was for me. Your struggle can end. You don't have to continue to struggle. I'm sharing with you why you've struggled. Do not shame yourself if you've struggled like I did. Like, why the heck am I not getting the results? Why am I not having the love of my life? Why am I not, why wasn't I making the money? Why was I still being hunted? Why, blah, 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 you name it. I've been there. I get it. This is why. And that fraction needs to be closed off, cleared, and you need to be protected, and you have the power. And I shared in the at least in the first video, I think in the second video, a number of things that you can do to clear, to remove those entities, and not only to remove them so they don't come back in, but to be able to restore the template and to be able to protect your energy. Okay, I now I kind of got intense there, but I'm super passionate about this because I didn't have this information and I suffered for so long. I'm 61 years old and I'm just starting to begin to live my life and to enjoy my life and to get excited about life because I'm not being haunted. And when I say haunted, I mean haunted. It's when you have, bipolar, schizophrenia, psychosis, anxiety, OCD, depression. My eyebrows are almost, I don't want to speak life into them being non-existent. They're growing in. That was because of my OCD as a child. I would just pull them all out. Echoes of trauma. Echoes of trauma. So, yeah, the struggle has been real, and I get that for you, okay? So again, that permanent gateway for fallen matrix entities that's why the repair work has to be done. So as I've mentioned, in case I didn't miss, experience emotion and signs of depleted life force energy, emotion, depression, shame, guilt, pain, hurt, anger, anguish, all of it have to do with depleted life force energy, and it may not even be yours. How about that one? And so an adult who has not had the repair work because they weren't aware that they needed it, persistent depression, mood disorders, mental illness, compulsive sexual activity, sex addiction, porn addiction, love addiction, trauma bonding, being haunted, poltergeist activity. Okay? Dang, I know that haunted one. Spiritual attacks, psychic attacks. If you're a twin flame who's experienced especially sexual trauma before the age of 7, or a depth of trauma like I did, child sex slavery, or if you were pimped out and you were voodooed out, which some of my clients have been, you get this. You get this. Literally haunted. That stops now. Stops now. Because you deserve the best life. You don't need to live in secrecy and shame and isolation, afraid. of just wanting to go to sleep at night, of wanting to enjoy life, of wanting to interact, of wanting to be more and more intimate, of wanting deeper connections. You deserve it all. Yeah. Here's the solution: realignment, restoration of your 12D human template, which allows you to effectively cultivate your Kundalini energy and to properly ascend so that you can reach inner union, detachment, surrender, and then reach external physical reunion. Number one, sex is not something to be ashamed about. Easier said than done. Shed the shame. Show up with me, shed the shame. Or you might show up with somebody else. You already know how to do it. Shed the shame. Tell yourself that's your mind. My mind feels ashamed because they think that I shouldn't be struggling, that I should be done with this right now. But guess what? I am not my mind. I am not my emotions. I am not shame. I am soul. I am joy. I am peace. I am love. I am union. Repeat that. Say that to yourself because you are not your mind. It's powerful. When I started doing that, I was like, hoo, hoo, hoo. Yeah, it works. World Cup of Joe. I have World Cup of Joe to thank for that one. Check them out. Um, let's see. Inner child work. Inner child concurrent realities. That's a real thing. That's a real thing because there are memories along with those trapped emotions that need to be neutralized. In other words, once you release the trapped emotion that is associated with the particular memory, you neutralize the charge. So when you remember it next time, you don't feel the emotion. You're kind of like, I'm good to go. I'm good to go. Been there, done that. So it's about neutralizing the charge. It truly is about energy. Okay. Like I mentioned already, conscious Kundalini cultivation. Know what you're doing. When do you need to be celibate? When do you know what you're doing with sexual energy? Do you know how you're interacting with others? Conscious, be sacred, be intentional about it. Um, Obviously, celibacy can be helpful, especially when you're trying to restabilize and restore that human template and heal that sacral chakra. Let's see. Here's a statement. If you are ready to do self-pleasure or to interact with somebody or others, you can make the statement. I shared it, like I said, in the last video. It's worth repeating. This is from Dr. Samuel Lee, the spiritual psychiatrist. Again, I don't agree with everything he says because he says some stuff about sacred geometry that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a lot that he shares that's very interesting. Here it is. This is a declaration that you can make before sexual activity. This energy belongs to my template. I direct it to my activation. I do not consent to it being harvested. Okay, rehab. Rehab for love, sex, porn addiction. Highly recommend if this is you. Entity removal. There are people who do that, who specialize in entity removal. However, you have to really know who's doing the removal and if you can trust this person, because I'm just saying, okay? And you can also do that yourself. I mentioned in the other video, I think it was part two. Yeah, it was part two, where you can take that polished stone and get some oil on your abdomen and you can remove that. Go back to video in part two. I'm not going to repeat that again, but there's something that you can actually do using oil and crystals. You can wear protective jewelry. There's certain crystals that you can work with. Let's see. There's a lot of other ways to do it. Chanting, breath work, really that's conscious Kundalini activation. Like I said, I've got a 4-week immersive sacred sexuality awakening coming up right around the corner. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. If you really want to know what's going on with your Kundalini and what to do with it, I'm telling you, this is for you. Breakthrough transformation. There's your opportunity. And here's the last one that I have here is sacred sex with your other self. If you are in physical reunion, having sacred sex actually helps you to mutually activate each other, higher levels of frequencies, which allow you to access higher levels of awareness, of conscious awareness. Now, the key is if you have to be in harmonious reunion, where there is devotion, unconditional love, where you are present, where you slow down, where you're really connecting with each other. Because if you're not, you're going to have that what I call that sexual shutdown. That's another video. I'll throw that link in there too. And you're going to end up separating again. Okay. So here's the deal. What if you just prepare to be intimate with yourself first and really learn how to cultivate the energy now? It's the intimacy starts with you. This is part of your sacred preparation if you choose. If not, perhaps you do come in and the energy just does this again because you're not properly prepared. I got you. I got you. Okay, there it is. Oh, you know what? For those who, I need to mention a couple other things. Okay. Trigger warning before I end here. There is a couple things I'd like to mention. Number one is grooming. Okay, it is very common, especially in the sports industry, the entertainment industry. If you are like a teenager or even a young child who is gifted, gifted in some way, with acting or singing or athletically, you'll have essentially you go to like a trainer's home and you live with them and you're not with your family. And then there's something that's known as grooming, where you start to develop a relationship like this. The child will develop a relationship. I'm not saying you, the child will develop or teen will develop a relationship with this person. Think of P. Diddy and what's his name? Justin Bieber. Okay, that's a prime example of grooming, which is actually a lot more common than you might think, or maybe you do know. And eventually it leads to inappropriate sexual boundaries being crossed, without real true consent, because it's very manipulative and it's deceptive. And you can't really expect consent from a child, a minor. Okay, there's just, yeah. So, especially when you are an adult who's responsible for offering shelter and food, and shelter protection, there's a manipulation there. So that's grooming. The other one, I think it's really important to share, and I'm going to be very careful when I share this word, because when I share some of the stuff here on YouTube, it's like, okay, my field is cleared and protected. I'm going to be able to upload this with the greatest of ease, no problem for Mama G. It is something called AD. I'm going to see if I can rhyme it with something. I don't think I want to say this word. Ahenadone. I'm going to say it like that. Ahenadone is actually a drug that is on the black market. And I have someone who I know who, yeah, anyways, I just know someone who had discovered this. Anyways, so it's not like I'm just making this up, and I did my research. I actually got a firsthand witness here. So ahenahone is a drug on the black market for typically, quote, the elite, or not so elite, who maintain their youthful vitality and their immortality, rather, not really, but their youthfulness, by taking this drug. And the drug is essentially and this is where it comes back to the young children, when a young children is traumatized during the sexual act, when you combine the sexual act, the sexual trauma and violation with absolute terror, torture, you increase, there's certain level, I think like dopamine or like hormones just flood the system. Okay. And then the blood is extracted and made into a drug. So there's that too. There's that too. So let's just be super mindful. Like, do the best that you can to heal yourself, to be responsible for yourself, to speak truth, to stand up, to reclaim your own sovereignty, so that you can be there to allow others to do the same. And then we'll just increase the level of frequency of sacred sexual sovereignty, and that'll automatically help to create that in others. Because when I do it and you do it, and the more who do it, we create this resonant field, and the collective can't help but up level. Attunement always up levels. Think about it when you have a couple of tuning forks. If you hold one with a higher pitch next to another with a lower pitch, the lower pitch one is always going to attune to the higher pitch. It's true. I done it. I used to teach it. It's fun. Anyways, that's that. I hope that wasn't too heavy for you. Like I said, wait, did I? I think I covered everything. Okay, so that's part three. I'm going to do one more part with this series, I believe, where I'm going to talk about like sacred symbols. I have the ink here. I have some crystals. I'm going to talk about the hexagram and talk about other ways that you can assist yourself in clearing and protecting your energy. So like, comment, subscribe, share, all the above. Check those links in the description, and I'll see you in part four. We are gonna rock this. We're taking it all back. What am I doing here? Let me see. Hold on. I'll talk soon.